Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to a new episode of Dancing Heart, the place that inspires you to follow your heart and dream big. I'm your host, Torny, and today I am super excited because I have invited Rivkie Goldstein on the show. Rivkie is a mother of 7. She is a parent coach and educator. She lives in New York and she does homeschooling for her kids. And now you might wonder, how does she do all of that? And you know what? I had the exact same question. How does she do all of that? So I invited Rivkie on the show so she could come here and share from her personal experience as a parent coach and educator doing homeschooling. And I'm just so inspired by Rivkie and the work that she's doing. And the story of how she went from parenting from a place of discipline to a place from awareness. Welcome to the Dancing Heart podcast, Rivkie Goldstein.
Thank you. I love the dancing heart.
Yes,
When you first shared that, I was just like so taken by it.
that's amazing. So, talking about dancing heart, what makes your heart dance today?
Mm, Today, I got a good night's sleep. That's amazing. That's
That's
just, it's been a long time, let's just say.
that's great. I'm happy. That's all you need,
Yeah.
like a good night's sleep, and
Uh-huh.
then you recharge for the day.
Uh-huh. Yeah. It's been a long time, many years, of waking up in the middle of the night, nursing babies, little children needing me. And I just really enjoyed just going to sleep early and just knowing that, I'm probably going to be able to sleep through the night. So that's my dancing heart for today.
Yes, I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. Thank you. So, Rivkie, you are a parent educator.
Mhm.
You're an empowerment coach, and you're a mother of 7 kids, and you do homeschooling.
Yes.
Like by saying that, I'm just so I get goosebumps. Like I'm so inspired. Like because I'm a single mother of 1 child, and I can just like having 7 kids at home and doing homeschooling while you're working. I'm just so impressed by that, and I'm super curious to hear what you are doing and how you do it and about your background. So I would love for you if you could share some of your about who you are and some of your about your a bit about your story.
Okay. Sure. Happy to. Okay. So I my first child was born 15 and a half years ago. That's my oldest. She's 15. And initially starting out as a parent, I kind of just was going very like mainstream, very strict, a lot of control, a lot of focus on the children's behavior. And I just didn't know anything about, the reasons why children behave the way they do, the messages they're trying to communicate to us. I didn't know about like the nurturing aspect of parenting. I just knew like parenting is about like making these kids turn out well, like behave well, And it was very unhappy experience. It didn't feel right. I just kind of like, I knew I didn't want it to be this way, but I didn't know how to change it. And for many years, I kind of like was trying to try out new ways, but it just never stuck for me. Like I would kind of just always revert back to the, authoritarian? Yeah, authoritarian model. And I just couldn't get any sort of like lasting change in terms of what I really wanted as a parent. And about 4.5 years ago, there was someone that I turned to for support that was able to really help me make the changes that I wanted to make. And that's where I feel like that was the greatest shift that happened for me. It was about 4.5 years ago where I kind of like took responsibility for the past. And it's very interesting because I just gave a class last night about repair. And that's one of the things that I talked about, how there's like repair for day-to-day stuff that happens. But then there are those of us who maybe like raise our children a certain way for a certain amount of time, and then we're finally able to shift now at whatever point in time it is. It's so valuable to sit down with our child and have a repairing conversation for a past, not just for an incident. And so that's something that I did, where I would have these conversations with my children and just talking about how I want to make these changes, and I'm taking responsibility and ownership for the way things were, and I don't want it to be that way anymore. And these are actually ongoing conversations, by the way, because sometimes kids bring something up way down the line that you thought you discussed with them already. You thought, like, didn't we repair this already? Like, why are they talking about it again? But guess what? I just think that sometimes pain resurfaces, and they're just showing me like something came up for them again, and it's just yet another opportunity to hear them and see them and acknowledge. And so it's an ongoing thing. And so as I finally was able to start to make these lasting changes, I was like so passionate about what I was discovering and how beautiful it was becoming to be a mother. Until then, it wasn't beautiful. It was just something that like I had to do, and I had to do it right. And as I started to discover the gentle and nurturing aspect of being a parent, it was so transformative for me personally that I really wanted to start to share it with other people. And I started to write posts, put them on Instagram, put them out there. And eventually I started to coach people and give classes here and there, and just different, offerings that I've done, especially over the last year. Also, another offering that I started was something called Mother Together, which is women coming together for about a week, meeting on Zoom several times as a way of bringing a sense of village and connection. Because as I'm going on this process, I'm seeing, in addition to the fact that so many of us maybe don't have, perhaps we didn't have a model of a nurturing childhood to take with us into our parenthood, there's also just the lack of connection and support especially in America, I think. And it's very significant. It really impacts our parenting in a significant way in our lives. So that's something else that I started to bring into my offering. And the homeschooling showed up as I was shifting as a parent. I was becoming more and more uncomfortable with things that were happening in school, and my children were becoming more and more unhappy. And at first I felt like I was just kind of at a loss. Like, what do I do? Like, changing them to another school probably isn't going to make much of a difference. So why would I put them through such a big upheaval? Because it is a big deal to switch schools. Like, unless I knew it was going to be amazing, we'll go through the upheaval, but I knew it's probably not going to be that much different. And I started to learn about homeschooling, which I personally always loved. I love the concept of it, but I just always felt like it's so taboo. Like it's like no one does it. Like it's not, and all of the narratives that are out there about homeschooling children that like kind of put me off. But as I learned about it and I started to encounter other people that homeschool online through WhatsApp, like just in different communities, I started to see it's nothing like what most people think it is. It's hard in many ways, but not as hard as people think it is or think it has to be. And also that homeschooling children are not what people think they are. And as I learned about it, I was like, oh my gosh, I can finally do what I've always been dreaming about. And I was really, really happy that I looked into it, I learned about it, and then I was able to jump into it. And I think one of the reasons I'm able to do it is because I entered it with the absolute awareness that I was not going to do it perfectly, and that it was going to take me time to figure it out. You know what I'm saying? Time to figure out how we work together as a family. Because one of the ideas around homeschooling is the idea that we're just living life together as if the concept of school had never existed. had there never been such a concept of school, how would families live together? How would parents educate their children? That's what we're doing. And for most of us, because we're so used to the school model for education, it to shift into homeschooling, it takes time to figure out like, wait, how are we going to do this? How do we live together? You know? And I gave myself a lot of grace to take as much time as I needed to figure it out. And it's an ongoing process of figuring it out. And someone just asked me, it's just funny that you were saying this because someone asked me, like, how do you do it all? And now I'm partnering with two women to open a school, a small school for high school age girls. Like, how do you do this all? And your kids are at home. And I said, I do it. I do my best. Oh, 1 second. If you don't mind, I'm going to have a look because I think that this kind of paraphrases exactly exactly what we're talking about here. I said, how do you do all of this? And I said, by doing them all as best as I can and being okay with whatever that best is.
I love that.
And yeah,
It's not about being perfect. It's about, like you said, so beautiful, like figuring it all out and allowing yourself to not be perfect all the time.
yeah,
And just be in the process of it. Wow. This is so, I love your story and how you made that conscious shift within yourself that, hey, I don't want to be this parent anymore. Like, how can I shift this? And you seek support with someone to get support. And you like how I'm just curious to know, like, how did the everything changed for you when you said you seek support and you had these conversations with your children, like, hey, like, I take the responsibility for how things has been up until now, but and how did you change your role as a mother? Not the role as a mother, but
yeah,
how did you the approach to your children?
yeah. It's so interesting because, I noticed that I still, so to speak, mess up, right? Because we all do. But it's very different than when it was in the past. In the past, when I was messing up, I was rationalizing it as I thought that it was okay to do that, you know? So I was kind of like justifying the way I was parenting, thinking that I'm disciplining my kids, I'm raising them, And in the process of getting the right support, I started to learn about connection. I didn't know about it.
Mm.
Started to learn about um, how a child's brain functions, how all of our brains function, and just knowing all of that stuff changed so much, you know? And so now I was parenting from a place of awareness and taking ownership for when I'm messing up rather than turning it into, well, I'm disciplining my kid. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
if I got angry, it was no longer like, well, I have to teach them. It was like, no, I got angry and that's mine. Like I own that,
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that's how things changed in a big way, you know, with that awareness.
It all starts with awareness. I just see the difference, like with myself. Like, our kids are always a mirror to us, and when I get like angry or triggered, I'm like, why am I getting triggered right now? Like, what is it inside of me that I'm reacting like this? So
Exactly.
it all starts with the awareness of how we how we see the kids. But it also,
Exactly.
like you said, you gain some more knowledge about how their brains works and how this actually built together.
Hmm.
And how is that helping you to go like to educate them in the way that you want to through homeschooling instead of being in the system?
Well, that's interesting. It was, I learned about what children need and how much connection is important, connection is so important and the safety that they derive from their relationship with us and how a brain develops best in a space of safety and character develops best in a space of safety and, everything. And then, as I'm knowing all of that, and then I'm seeing the kinds of, discipline methods that are used in a school, which are very just behavior oriented and performance oriented, that was where like I was like, no, like it just it's not lining up. And I wanted my children's learning to be because I want them to learn because they love it, not because they have to get 100 on a test or pass some sort of, you know, school imposed, list of expectations per grade. I don't think they need to learn all of those things at exactly that grade. I trust that when they get older, there's something that they may have not covered when they were younger. We can learn it when they're older. It's all there, it's all available. And as long as we keep that love for learning intact, then we can tackle anything at any age. I mean, like we're all learning new stuff at
Yeah, we
every
are
age, you know?
constantly evolving and learning and growing,
Yep.
and we never
Exactly.
stop doing that. And how
Yeah.
do you see the difference in your children? Like, do you see them happier, like you said,
Oh,
when they are home? What is the biggest shift that you have seen in them?
well, I saw a shift when I took ownership in general. Like I saw a tremendous sense of relief for them. Like they finally felt safe. Like they finally everything made sense. And I'll tell it's interesting. In the class yesterday on repair, I shared this idea that one of the reasons we repair with our child is to align their inner knowing with their outer experience. And I'll explain what I mean by that. Let's say I just had a bad day and I was like impatient with my kids all day. Intuitively, they know that that's not how it should be. Intuitively, they know that they're not meant to be treated that way by their mother. One of my kids once said to me, like, mommies aren't supposed to be mean to their kids. And I'm like, you're right.
Yeah.
So they have that gut, they have that intuition about how things should be. And then when I repair so that they know that what they're feeling intuitively is accurate. By acknowledging that what happened was, wrong and it's my responsibility, I am showing them that what they felt intuitively is accurate and that they can trust themselves. So, whereas if I was to pretend like nothing happened, I make no mention of what happened. Now there's this confusion because, like, intuitively they know that something's wrong here, but then the person that they trust the most in the entire world is making no mention of it. So maybe nothing is wrong. It's confusing. So by coming forth and taking responsibility, what it just sets to rest all of that inner confusion. Um, and I think that I saw significant relief in my children after that. And then also when I told them that we're going to homeschool, there was that similar like, phew, you know?
Wow.
Yeah, it was great.
I love that. I love that you said that you are giving them acknowledge what they intuitively know in the situation.
Yeah.
Like, can you give me an example for how do you do the repair in a certain situation if you have any examples?
It's interesting because one of the things that I talk about is that there isn't really one right or wrong way. There are so many things there's so many ways we can repair. And there's also so many things you might want to like assess as we're like approaching a situation of repair where we may want to be like, when is the right time? Maybe sometimes it's not a good idea to repair right away because maybe everyone needs some time just to calm down. There are different factors to consider, but I think the main point is that we're just reaching out to restore our connection with our child. And however we do that, probably going to be fine because it's the reaching out that shows them I see, I know, and I care. That's really all they need. And how we end up doing it and which words we use and at what time and so on and so forth, we'll figure that out. But when we just like the reaching out that's where all the power lies. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So what words we say, it almost doesn't matter. Um, it's just more about the action of showing them that I want to restore my connection with you. That's what they need.
Of course, I love that.
Yeah.
because we all mess up like every day we do something that we have to repair with our kids and with
Yeah.
ourselves. So it's
Yeah.
does it so it starts with the acknowledgement of the awareness of
Yeah.
ourselves and how we can see the situation that we
Yeah.
are in with the kids, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then, you know, sometimes again, and I like how you said that awareness within ourselves first, because I believe that one thing we do want to be aware of is that we're not approaching a repair with our child as a way of making ourselves feel better. In other words, that I'm approaching my child so that after I repair with them, I'll be okay. Because that's not their responsibility. You know what I'm saying? I want to return to okayness with myself first. Now I come and restore the connection with my child.
Hmm.
So that's the only thing that I would say to be mindful of is like, if there's some sort of personal thing that personal need that I might be trying to meet in reaching out to my child to repair. And if there is, like, just attend to it first with myself and then come to my child.
Mm. So, like you said, yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing. And you had one of your somebody reaching out to you the other day about how do you do it all? How do you homeschool? How do you have time for like? Can you take me to like through like a normal day in your life? Like how do you organize the day with
I
seven?
wish I could. I wish I could, but you know what? With 7 children, there are so many moving parts that there is no 2 days out of every day is different, and there are different things that come up every day. And what's nice about one of the things that I love about this lifestyle is that flexibility is perfect. It's totally fine because sometimes we'll be doing, we'll be learning something. We're learning something when we're driving to an appointment because we're listening to a podcast. My kids just started listening to a podcast called "But Why," a podcast with various kids. It's adorable. And so there's just so many different ways to be learning, and it's flexible. We're fitting it in at various different times during the day. Yeah, it's very, every day is different. And that's the thing with homeschooling is that there is no one right or wrong way to do this because for some families it works to have a very structured routine, and that's amazing. And maybe at some point that will be how we will do things. And right now it's just more of a flexible, much more of a flexible routine, depending on the day, depending on what's going on for everyone. So that's how it is for us. But it's about like every mother tuning into herself and her children and the current season in her life. Like, for example, if the mom's homeschooling and she has a baby, things are going to be different because, the baby has a lot of needs.
Mm-hmm.
So she's going to structure things differently than someone who's homeschooling a bunch of older children, or if someone has one child or they're homeschooling a bunch of children. Like, but that's the beauty of it, that there isn't a wrong way, you know?
That's beautiful. Yeah, that's true because there is no right or wrong way. It's just how it feels good for you and also for your kids.
Yeah.
It's about
And
finding the
kind of,
balance.
yeah. And also kind of like, for me, it's also about centering the relationship at all times, like keeping that front and center, that whatever we're doing, I don't want it to ever compromise our relationship. So if we're doing something and it's just not going well, that we're going to take a step back and reassess, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because I brought them home so that I can actually nurture that relationship with them. And I don't want like some sort of, academic something or other, that, oh, I need to cover this topic today to impact our relationship. I can step back and figure out another way to teach this to them or another time. And there's so many resources out there. Um, I follow amazing accounts, homeschooling accounts, amazing insight of how to navigate these issues, and it really helps.
Wow, I love it because I also been very like curious about homeschooling. My daughter is going to start school now in this year.
Mm-hmm.
So What would you say is like the biggest challenge doing homeschooling?
Oh, that's such a good question. At this point, I feel like the biggest challenge is finding the time, or rather the commitment, perhaps, taking care of myself.
Yeah,
I think that's the hardest because, I don't know, I'm sure you can relate, but like when our kids want things from us, or they're asking for all the things they want and they need, and they're showing us what they need and they want, it's very easy for us to put ourselves on the side and put ourselves last. And in the long run, it really doesn't serve, you know?
I know.
So it's kind of like, if my children there's no little babies right now. So if I'm going to like tell the kids I'm going to make a phone call now and they're not happy about that, it's kind of about like, I can go in my room and close the door because I know there's not like a little baby getting into something dangerous. Like I know everybody's okay and safe, but it's more about like me trusting that I can do this, that it's okay for me to take some time, and it's okay that if they're disappointed, that's okay. They're allowed to have their feelings and I can do what I need to do. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, it's been about learning to trust that I can take time for myself or attend to myself, which has been a process, and I'm still working on it.
I know. It's an ongoing process, especially as moms. Like you need to fill your
Yeah.
own cup first,
Mhm.
because if you don't, you don't have so much to give to the others, like to your kids and to the environment you're in or
Yeah.
other people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's so important, like trusting that you are worthy of having the time alone and your kids are safe while you are taking the time to nourish yourself.
Yeah. And I really see that the deeper I trust it, that they're okay, even though they're disappointed, they actually feel that trust. And I see the difference when I'm feeling like that inner knowing that everybody's fine. I see how they feel it. Whereas when I'm coming like, I'm kind of like apologetically taking the time for myself and I'm like waiting for everyone's reaction. I'm kind of like all fearful. They feel that too. And that doesn't feel very good for them, you know? So it's kind of about developing that, cultivating it, growing it, you know?
Yeah, I love it that you are so aware and then you come to them and with this trust within yourself, and that reflects upon your kids that they feel safe and by you taking the time for yourself as well.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So you are also a parent educator and you're an empowerment coach. So what do you actually, so what is that you help other moms or parents with? Why did they
Oh,
come to you?
very interesting. So I coach parents in terms of, well, oftentimes it starts off as a conversation about our child's behavior, but it usually turns into a conversation about ourselves, because everything that is triggered with our child's behavior is usually just kind of a window into what transformation is available for us personally. And so, in addition to learning about what our child is really communicating to us and how to relate to them and how to connect with them in a way that they feel seen and understood, there's also so much potential in all of those things for our own growth. And that's usually like how the conversations go. It's not only about what to do and what to say. It's a lot about understanding the background behind our children's behavior, understanding where they're really coming from. And you know what? Primarily, it's about, I find it that what I love the most about coaching is helping parents uncover their natural, innate sense of compassion for their child. Because I think in our society, we're like so inundated with all these messages about, we got to teach the kids and we got to, discipline them. And it just takes us away from our love for our children. It takes us away from feeling that compassion for them because we get so caught up in like this race or this like competition of making sure our kids look good, or making sure they're behaving well. And it just takes us away from so much joy that's available to us as parents. Sometimes once we really recognize and we develop that if our child is I'll just give an example. Just the other day, one of my children, my 5-year-old, he brought his pillow and blanket downstairs to the living room, and it was like on the floor, and he asked me to move his pillow to like another spot on the carpet. And I'm sitting on the couch. I'm like, he's standing right there. Like, why? He could just do it himself, right? Like, why can't? And I was kind of about to say that. I was like, can you just do it yourself? Like, you know. And then I thought to myself, wait a minute, why is he asking me to do it if he could really do it himself? And I realized he's asking because for whatever reason, he wants reassurance that I care about him. It's not about moving the pillow. It's about that knowing that mommy cares about me. And for whatever reason, he needed that reassurance that day. And so whether or not a parent actually doesn't mean that we can always actually meet the needs our children is asking for in terms of the practical side of it. Maybe sometimes we can't do what they're asking for. But the awareness of why he was asking helped me so that I was able to communicate to him and say, is it that you want me to do it because then you feel like I care about you? And he's like, yeah. And so, having that awareness, I just feel like it's so fulfilling for parents to be able to really know how much our kids need our love and compassion, and we need to know that we care about them. I think it's so fulfilling to know that, and to be able to see that, even if we're not always going to do the things they're asking of us, but we see where they're really coming from. You know what I'm saying? So it's really about, I feel like that's what I really want out of helping parents is reconnecting them with that like innate sense of a nurturer, being a nurturer. And therein is so much joy and fulfillment. And then everyone's happy. You know what I'm saying? Like everything just flows so much better. So
It's so true. I'm just I just love to listen to it because I just can see in your
yeah,
face that you're like lighting up when you're talking about this and how much joy it brings to you. And because you
yeah,
have been in the other side of as well, like, oh, it wasn't that joyful. Why am I reacting like this? I don't like the person I am when
yeah,
I react like this. And I can totally like, I can relate to that as well, like why it's not joyful, like sometimes it's not even joyful, but like what. And then you said like you want to see like why is he asking this question, like why does he want me to do this. And I think it's just so beautiful, like how aware you are of everything that is happening. Like, are you 100% aware all the time?
oh no, not at all.
I'm just
It's like a combination of like how tired and overwhelmed I might be, plus just generally having practiced this for a little while. And I really want to add that something that really helped me is I've taken classes, several courses in nonviolent communication, which really helped me to start to understand the idea of underlying needs and how to tune in and how to understand what someone might be feeling, and and then inquiring that of them, not telling them like, oh, you're feeling this, but rather asking like, hey, is it this that you're feeling? And giving them that space to say yes or no. And that's okay if I got it wrong. Even my asking is already showing care, but it's a combination. So it doesn't mean that I'm aware. And it also depends. Sometimes it's hard to find the words to communicate what I think it might be. But yeah, it's practice and, all of that.
practice
Yeah.
and communication, like you said, it's so important, like how you communicate,
Yeah.
how you
Yeah.
decide to
Finding
use
the
your
words
words
and yeah. Yeah.
of your kids. Wow, I
Mhm.
love it. And you told me about yesterday you had a class about the healing bridge where
Yeah.
you focus on repairing the relationship with yourself and the kids.
Mhm.
And can you tell me just more about how this, like how do you do it? Like the concept behind it?
It all came out of a session, I believe, with a client and we were talking about repair. And as we were talking about it, I just suddenly like had this moment where I was like, oh my goodness, there's so much to say about this. It's enough for our class. And that was it. I was like, I'm going to turn this into our class. So, yeah, I just realized that there's so many nuances about it that we really don't, maybe we're not aware of. And I just wanted to bring awareness and, you know, bring more understanding to why it's important, as well as a lot of permission for us not to do it right or perfectly right. And the reason I say that is because I think that we live in a time where it's amazing how much information we have available to us. And I learned so much. I'm so grateful for all that information. And the other side of the coin is that sometimes all that information turns into like, I don't know, like a checklist of things that we have to check off in order to know that we're okay as parents and that we're good enough. And the feeling like if we don't do it right, we're going to ruin our children. We don't do it right all the time. And so as I was teaching, like I kept on saying that even if we don't say it right every time, or we miss an opportunity here and there, or there's a time that we didn't repair, for the most part, you know, if it's not, you know, the real concern is when there's no repair ever. That's the biggest problem, you know? But if we are a parent who's generally trying, and most of the time we repair when we can, and we generally find words that feel, you know, helpful to communicate to our child. I just didn't want people walking out feeling like just another thing on their shoulders that they have to do right. And they have to be perfect, because I don't think it helps. So it was really about that, and also about repair. The reason I kept on saying repairing with ourselves as well, because you know, the hardest person on a mother is herself.
Yeah.
Right.
So much pressure we put on our shoulders to be the perfect mother and the perfect parent.
Yeah. And when we mess up, that inner critic is very loud. And if we just think about it, like if we were to speak to our child that way, we would very likely want to repair with our child. So what about ourselves? The way we speak to ourselves. And just returning to trusting that we're okay and that we're worthy, even if we mess up, we're so completely worthy. And so we talked a lot about that because it's such an important piece.
It is. It's so important that you're like putting this out, so making making a difference for parents, that it's okay to mess up, and this is how you can repair. And yeah, just putting that into words and just being of service in that way, it's so important. Because in this, I can feel it too sometimes, like as a parent, like you just want your kids to be happy, and what you say is all they need is safety, to be seen and to be heard.
That's the foundation. Absolutely. And the practical side of it, that we can't always do everything that our children are asking, because there are many reasons why, and that's okay. Like they don't really need us to do every single thing for them. They just need to know that we see them more than anything else.
Wow, I love this so much, Rivkie. You have so much wisdom, and I think you have. I'm just very, that you are doing all of this with 7 kids, and you are helping other parents as well to be more aware of how they are with their children and homeschooling. And what would you say, like if somebody are curious about homeschooling, what is the biggest, what is the tip that you would give to them?
I would suggest 2 things, I'd say. One thing I would say is to learn about it. Like really just immerse yourself in, you know, be it Instagram or reading books or listening to podcasts. And also, you know, paying attention to the content that you're listening to, because there are probably, I know that there is that perfectionist side to the homeschooling world where, you know, the Instagram pages that give you the sense of perfection. If that feels overwhelming for someone, that doesn't have to be the page that you're following, you know, for your homeschooling education. And if that works for someone else, that's amazing. But like really listening to yourself as you're listening to content, you know, and paying attention. Is this the kind of content that, you know, lifts me up, lights me up, do I feel a dancing heart, right?
Yeah.
When I listen to this, or do I feel burdened? So educating yourself while listening to yourself as well. And then if you decide to embark on homeschooling, to give yourself a lot of permission and a lot of space to learn, trial and error, make mistakes, you know, just give yourself time and space and grace.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. Yeah.
Amazing. Because it's more like a lifestyle like that you
Oh
said.
yeah. Yes, it is. It's true. It really is.
So you have to just get into that.
Yeah.
It's a transition.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Amazing. So Rivke, what is the, I just want to ask you a final question.
Sure.
So what would you say to your younger self, like 10
Hmm.
years ago, that you wished you knew back then, that you know now today?
No, that's such a good question. I know. I remember distinctly that all those years of struggling in the way that I was struggling then, that I would end off my days with this like gloom and despair that things would never work out and that I am just never going to succeed. I had such despair most of the time. I was feeling despairing. And I would probably tell myself that I'm going to be okay and that help is going to come my way and that my efforts are not in vain and that, in other words, that what I really want is going to come to me, that I really wanted to be a kinder parent and that I'm going to learn how to. So kind of just to like lift myself up, during those dark, despairing times, that's what I would have probably wanted to give myself. Yeah. Hope, you know?
Mm, amazing. So important to have hope. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, just like something else, it's going to be better. The situation will
Exactly.
change. You just have to know that and believe that.
Yeah.
So, Rivki, if anybody wants to reach out to you, where can they find you?
I'm on Instagram, Rivkie Goldstein. Just
Rivkie
exactly
Goldstein.
it. Yeah. And yeah, I'm there.
Thank you so much, Rivki, for sharing.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
Thank you so much, Rivki, for sharing your story and your wisdom on the podcast. It was an honor to have you here. And thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. Don't forget to share it with your friends. You can also tag me on Instagram. It's Torny. I wish you a beautiful day and I will see you in the next episode.